At the back of a jewelry store, past the glass cases of rings, behind a door marked simply repairs, there's a bench you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. A high stool, a lamp with a green glass shade, a black mat with 100 tiny parts laid across it in an order only one person in the world understands. A row of files, tweezers, and screwdrivers so small they look like they belong in a doll's house. And a loupe, a little eye magnifier, resting in the spot where a man's eye socket has worn the shine clean off the metal. This is Henry's bench. He has sat at it, more or less, for 50 years. Around him, the world is loud. Henry's corner is not. Watchmaking is the quietest trade left in America, and Henry is one of the few who still practice it the old way, by hand, under glass, one movement at a time, in something close to silence. He understands a kind of machine that millions of people wear every single day and never once think about. A mechanical watch. A few hundred parts, some of them smaller than a grain of sand, assembled into a device that measures out a human life in seconds and runs on a power source no bigger than a coiled hair. The watch that stopped and just needs a battery, except it has no battery in it at all. The grandfather clock that ran for 90 years and finally fell silent in the hall. The pocket watch found in a drawer after a funeral, still wound, its hands frozen at some hour nobody can explain. The Rolex that's been around the world. The $10 drugstore watch a man won't part with, because his wife gave it to him. To Henry, they are all the same problem, and all completely different. There's a particular kind of person who carries a watch into a shop like this, and a particular thing they don't quite say out loud. Because a watch is never only a watch. Henry learned that from his father, who carried a railroad-grade pocket watch, a Hamilton, the kind the railroads once required, accurate to within seconds a week. In the railroad days, a watch that ran wrong wasn't an inconvenience. It could put two trains on the same stretch of track at the same minute. So they built watches that didn't run wrong, and they built men who could keep them that way. After a single misread watch helped send two trains into each other one morning in 1891, the railroads wrote strict rules for the watches their men carried. How accurate they had to be, how often they had to be checked, and who was permitted to check them. Whole towns had an official railroad watch inspector, and it was a position of real trust. Henry's father was one of the last of them. On a shelf above Henry's bench sits that same Hamilton, his father's. It still keeps near perfect time. He will never sell it. He keeps it there the way other men keep a photograph. Henry can tell a great deal about a watch before he ever opens it. He can tell a real Swiss movement from a copy by its weight in his palm. He can tell, from the way the second hand hesitates, that the oil inside has dried. Because that is almost always the secret. A mechanical watch doesn't usually die of some dramatic failure. It dies the way a small engine left full of old gas dies, slowly, quietly, as the oil thickens, turns to amber, and seizes the tiny pivots in their jeweled bearings. A man slides a watch across the bench and says it died, probably just needs a battery. Henry turns it over. It's an automatic. It wins itself from the motion of your wrist. There's no battery in it to change. When did it stop? A while back. It was my dad's. Was it ever serviced? Serviced? What do you mean, serviced? And Henry already knows. The oil dried out years ago, and the watch has been grinding itself to dust on every tick ever since. For most of the 20th century, this was an ordinary skill. Every town had a watchmaker, usually at the back of the jewelry store, and a good mechanical watch was something you bought once, serviced every few years, and handed down. Hamilton, Elgin, Waltham, Illinois, Bulova, names stamped on the movements of millions of American watches, all of them built to be opened, cleaned, oiled, and kept alive for generations. And then, almost overnight, the whole trade nearly died. In the 1970s, a new kind of watch arrived. Quartz. A battery, a vibrating crystal, a circuit, no mainspring, no balance wheel, no craft at all. It was cheaper than anything Henry could make, more accurate than anything Henry could make, and when it finally broke, you threw it away. Within a few years, it swept the world. The factories that had run for 100 years went dark. The schools that trained watchmakers shut their doors one after another. Most of the men Henry came up with left the trade entirely. There was no work in it. A skill that had been passed hand to hand for centuries came within a hair of vanishing inside a single decade. Henry stayed. There weren't many reasons to. except that he couldn't imagine doing anything else. And here is the strange part, the part the quartz watch never counted on. The mechanical watch didn't die. People came back to it. Not because it kept better time, it doesn't, but for exactly the opposite reason. A quartz watch is correct. A mechanical watch is alive. It has a heartbeat you can hold to your ear. And when the world filled up with disposable things that lit up and buzzed and were forgotten, a quiet number of people decided they wanted to own one thing that had been built by a human being to outlast them. Which left men like Henry, the ones who refused to quit, as almost the only people on Earth who could keep a century of mechanical watches running. The watches come in waves, and Henry has learned to read them. There's the wave before Christmas, when a man wants his grandfather's pocket watch ticking again so he can put it in his own grandson's hand on Christmas morning. And there's the quieter wave, the one Henry never gets used to. It comes after a funeral. A watch arrives wrapped in a handkerchief, stopped at whatever hour it ran down on a wrist that isn't there anymore. The person at the counter sets it down very carefully and asks if it can be made to run again. And they're not really asking about a watch. They are asking, as gently as a person can ask, whether some small mechanical piece of someone they loved can be started up one more time. Henry has never found a way to say no to that one. Watches come to Henry. The big clocks he goes to. A grandfather clock doesn't travel well. 8 feet of oak, a heavy pendulum, 3 brass weights on chains. So once or twice a week Henry still makes house calls, the way country doctors once did. He'll drive out to a farmhouse or a front parlor where a tall clock has stood in the same corner since before the family that owns it was born, and he'll level it, oil it, set the pendulum swinging, and adjust the beat until the tick and the tock fall evenly. The sound a clock makes only when it's running true. Then he stays to hear it chime. People tell him the house felt wrong while the clock was silent. Too quiet, they say, like something had stopped breathing in the next room. They're not wrong. A house with a working clock in it has a pulse. The work itself cannot be rushed, and it cannot be faked. Oiling a single pivot means placing a droplet of oil you can barely see in precisely the right spot, without letting it touch anything it shouldn't. A balance wheel swings and reverses several times a second, thousands of times an hour, millions of times a year, and every one of those swings has to be smooth. Henry sets the beat by ear and confirms it on a machine that hears what no ear can, listening to the tick the way a doctor listens to a chest. A proper service means taking the whole movement to pieces, every wheel, every screw, every jewel, washing each part until it gleams, then building it back up with fresh oil in the few dozen places that need it and nowhere else. And when a part has broken and the company that made it has been gone for 60 years, Henry does the one thing that truly separates a watchmaker from a man who only changes batteries. He makes a new one. He'll cut a replacement pivot or a wheel on a lathe small enough to sit on the bench, turning a sliver of steel down to a size you can only judge under magnification, until a part that existed nowhere on Earth that morning exists again by afternoon. You do not learn this from a manual or a video. You learn it from years under the loop, taking apart movements and putting them back together until your hands know the size of a screw you can hardly see. Henry learned it that way, but the stool beside his bench is empty. The schools that once made watchmakers are mostly gone, and the men who could have taught in them are mostly gone too. The knowledge now lives in a shrinking number of older hands, and a little of it leaves the world every time one of those benches goes quiet for good. Henry is well past the age most people retire. His hands are as steady on the small screws as they've ever been. But he knows the arithmetic. There are more watches than there are people left to fix them, and the gap grows every year. When the last watchmaker in a town finally hangs it up, the watches don't stop being precious. They just stop being fixable. The grandfather clock in the hall goes silent for good. The pocket watch stays frozen at the hour it stopped. The automatic on the dresser becomes a small, beautiful, dead thing, too sentimental to throw away, impossible to bring back. And a particular kind of object, one built to be repaired and handed down across generations, quietly becomes disposable after all, just by losing the one person who knew how to open it. But Henry isn't the last. Not yet. There are still others out there. Some at the backs of jewelry stores, like him. Some working alone in spare rooms, taking in watches by mail from hundreds of miles away. Some who set up at watch fairs with a loop and a folded cloth, drawing a line of people holding their grandfather's watch like a sick bird. and a few young ones, fewer than there should be, but more than there were 20 years ago, who fell in love with the tick of a mechanical movement and tracked down the old men to learn the craft before it was too late. They survived because the need survived. People still inherit watches. People still keep the one thing on their wrist that meant something. And every one of those watches will eventually stop and want a pair of patient hands. A woman brings in a man's wristwatch that stopped years ago. She thinks it stopped the week her father died. She can't say exactly why she wants it running again. She just wants to hear it tick. Henry opens the back. Inside, the movement is gummed solid, the oil dried to amber, the whole thing locked still. He takes it apart, a few hundred pieces, each one set down in its place on the black mat. He cleans every part. He oils each pivot with a touch smaller than a tear. He puts it all back together, one wheel at a time, under the loop, in the quiet. Then he winds it a few turns. For a moment, nothing. Then the balance wheel swings, hesitates, catches, and settles into that small, steady back and forth motion that is the closest thing any machine has ever come to a pulse. Henry lifts the watch to his ear and listens. There it is. Tick. The sound of 1 second being measured, and then another, the same way seconds have been measured since long before anyone in that room was born. He sets the second hand sweeping and hands it across the bench. The woman holds it to her own ear, and for a moment, she doesn't say anything at all. Another watch alive again. Not forever. In a few years, it'll need Henry, or someone like him, all over again. But for now, it's running. Keeping time. Because keeping old machines alive was never really about the machines. It was about the people who refused to let the well-made and the loved go silent, just because the world had something cheaper that lit up. Henry will never be famous. His bench is behind a door marked repairs, at the back of a store most people walk straight past. But as long as watches stop, and people hold on to the ones that mattered, there will be a quiet corner somewhere with a green lamp, a worn loop, and a man who can take a few hundred dead parts and give them back their heartbeat. His proof was never a speech. It's the sound of a watch that was silent, ticking again. If stories like this stay with you, subscribe to the channel, and I'll bring another one back to life next time.